everybody. My name's Joanna. I'm Benaya's mom, and Benaya asked me if I would be willing to give my testimony to anyone who's listening to his Bible reading blog. So I thank Benaya for asking me, and I will just get into the story. Actually, maybe I'll just take a minute to pray first. Dear Lord, I just pray that you would help me to be able to share a testimony that would be encouraging to those listening. And I thank you for all you've been doing in my life from birth till now. And I just thank you for how good you are. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, so I was born to a pastor's family, into a pastor's family. My grandfather, my mom's father, was also a pastor. So I was blessed with hearing about God and about creation, about how much God loves us all from my childhood, from before I was even born. I was in church and all of my life. And when I was very young, my father was pastoring at a small country church up in Wilton, Maine. And I was 3 or 4. I'm not sure which age I was, but we had Vacation Bible School and a guest speaker come. And the theme of the week was about freedom, and actually it might have been right close to 4th of July because they used red, white, and blue and compared a lot of things to the freedom of our country. I remember some of the decorations and that kind of thing, but mostly I remember the speaker being very clear about us all being sinners, that things that we do that are wrong, that they displease God, and that we can't be in his family, we can't have a relationship with him, that we have earned punishment of death because of the wrong things we do. And as I said, I was only 3 or 4, but I heard, I understood, and I believed. And I don't know if you've ever heard of childlike faith, but it's basically the simplicity of hearing and believing. And I did. I loved Vacation Bible School. I loved the songs. I loved learning the verses. I loved the Bible verses. I loved the fun times with kids. But when I went home and had a nap in the afternoon, I was laying in bed to have my nap and thinking about what I had heard. And I just laid there and thought, oh, I've done bad things. I disobeyed Mom. I was mean to my sister or my friend, my neighbor. I remember some specific things I did wrong, disobeying, eating and not eating my peas and dumping them down beside the table, thinking I could put them down there and that I would get away with not eating my peas, and I could have my dessert. But of course I got caught and I had a punishment of some sort for dumping my peas on the floor when I was supposed to eat them. And so I had learned by that age that I did wrong things and I did feel bad about it. And what the pastor at the Vacation Bible School explained was that Jesus had died on the cross for my sins, even if they might seem simple to anyone listening here, that it was something as simple as dumping my peas. But I had also seen other people sin. I had seen my brother in pain, and my cousins come and hit him right where his painful spot was. He had some boils and they heard about it and they decided to hit him there. And when he had a sunburn, they slapped his sunburn. So I knew those things were wrong. Even if I wasn't the one that did them, I understood sin. I understood that I had done things that were wrong too, and that I needed to be forgiven. And I did hear about God and how much he loved us and how much he was willing to give his own son to die on the cross for us to be forgiven, that we deserved punishment that was death, and that Jesus was willing to die in my place, in the place of anyone who was willing to receive his gift, his payment for our sin, his payment for my sin. And so I just believed what I had been told, that Jesus came, he was sent from heaven to die, to live on earth and then to die on the cross. He willingly gave up his life because he knew that God wanted to save us. His Father wanted to save us, and the Father gave his own Son. And I have some understanding of the value of our children because later in life, I'll tell you about that in a minute. But for now, I'll just say that while I was laying there in bed thinking about it, I decided I needed to ask Jesus to forgive me. And I got down beside the bed and knelt down and asked him to forgive me for my sins. I knew I had done bad things and I wanted to be a good girl. And I asked him to forgive me and to help me to be a good girl and to obey him and to do what was right. And when I got done praying, I got up and went and ran and told my mom that I had asked Jesus to forgive me of my sins. And I had great joy. I remember it, and I've never doubted my salvation, really, that I can think of. I've always had that childlike faith and very thankful for that. Then went on as a young girl to want to become a missionary one day because I understood God's love for me and wanted to be able to tell others who didn't know. We had missionary friends that were from Africa that came to visit us and stay at our house when I was just about that age, 3 and 4. The Petries, who were missionaries in Africa. I don't remember what country in Africa. But they were wonderful people that loved the Lord, and I was so excited by what they were doing in Africa, and I wanted to do something like that myself. So I did hope someday to become a missionary, and around age 12, I believe, I don't remember the service, I did tell the Lord I would serve him with my life, and then at age 17, I went to a camp in Turner, Maine, called Camp Maria. And we had missionaries there that challenged us to think of some specific missionaries that we knew, to write to them, ask if there was anything we could do if we were to go like on a short-term mission, and that would give us an introduction to it and possibly lead us to full-time missions. So that was a time that I did commit my life further, and I wrote to some missionaries that we were good friends with in Greece at the time, and asked them if there was anything that I could do. They, by my letter, thought that I had good English skills, which I did have. And so my hope was to go to Greece for a year. They said they could use me as an English secretary and to do their English work. And so I proceeded after high school. I actually worked for a year at a dentist's office, and then I did contact that mission board that our Greek missionaries were with, and that was out in California, and I went to their training school for potential missionaries, and it was like a week long. My mom went with me, Mary Dow went with me, and she really enjoyed it a lot too, but that was just kind of for fun for her. And at the end of the week, when I spoke with the board, they said with my age and the fact that I hadn't gone to college yet, they thought that I really should go on to college. I had also applied for a college in San Diego area and was accepted there, but was thinking, oh, I'll go to Greece for a year and then I'll come back and go to college. But the mission board said the Greeks are not very friendly people. They don't really like Americans. That would be a really hard year for you, not knowing the language of Greece. And so they said they thought it would be better for me to go on to school first and then to see if the Lord was still leading me to Greece after that. So I did go on to college at Christian Heritage College in El Cajon, California. That August, I think that was probably July, and I went in August to college, and it was a blessing. And that first fall, we had missionaries speak to us who were missionaries to Bangladesh, and I had read their story, his story that he had written called Doctor, when I was in high school, about 17, about the same age as I had really been committing my life to missions. So our keynote speaker that first missions conference at college was Dr. Viggo Olson and his wife Joan. And his wife was a home economics major, just as I was a home economics major at college, just starting out there. She was a home economics major, her husband a medical doctor, a surgeon, and they had gone to Bangladesh when it was still East Pakistan, and they were there during the civil war that broke out between Pakistan, East Pakistan and West Pakistan, and the East Pakistan won its independence through war, and so the doctor was there during the war, actually got injured while he was trying to protect the grounds, the property that they owned there, and the start of the hospital building. So being there at college and getting to meet them and talk to them, the wife said to me, Joan Olson said, "Oh, they could really use someone like you who knows home economics once you're done school in Bangladesh." And she said that I worked with women and they could really use someone to work with women. And so that was kind of became my goal. And there at college, I ended up dating my future husband, Matthew. Every year, he broke up with me at the end of the year, and then he would start dating me again the beginning of the next year when we were back. He wasn't there my first year, and then he came my sophomore year. So in the end, we did get married a year after I was done with college. And that year, during that year after, I went to Bangladesh for 3 months. And it was such a blessing. The Lord gave me evidence of how he works in our lives through his protection, his provision, very cool stories. On my way over, the missionaries had arranged somebody to meet me at my stops. I had one in the Philippines where I was there for several hours, and I was able to go to a missionary's home and rest and eat dinner with them, and they brought me back to the airport. And then when I was in Bangkok, Thailand, they had arranged missionaries to pick me up and bring me to a guest house, and then I believe it was them who brought me the next morning also to the airport. So that was a blessing. But on my way home, I didn't have anything arranged. Nobody arranged it, and I didn't know how to arrange it. So they just gave me like the address of the guest house I was going to stay at in Bangkok, because I believe I was going to be there for a couple days on my way home. And one of our missionaries I had gotten to know was also at that guest house. So I would at least, once I got there, have somebody I knew and could hang out with her. She was ill and was on her way home to the States. She had developed the liver disease, hepatitis, while she was in Bangladesh. She had caught that. And so she was very weak. And so anyway, she was going slowly home in order to be able to make it. But I was blessed with, on my way back, God just working everything out. They told me and gave me the right money that I would have for a taxi. And they told me where to go in the airport to get a taxi, and described a few situations. And when I got out there, they had told me that often people bring and drop somebody off at the airport, and they'll hang around to see if there's anyone who needs to go back into the city. And so I went out to the place where taxis were supposed to be, and there was only one car there. It was kind of a weird looking little, kind of like a small Subaru car. I don't know if it was Subaru, but it was like a small little car with like shag carpet, and it's on its window sills up on the top, the dash, and in the back. And then like dice hanging from his mirror. But I had the little card to show him, and he looked at it and he said yes. I asked him about paying him so much money, so many baht, and he said yes. So then he starts driving. I get in, he starts driving, and the whole way he's lighting a lighter. I'm in the back seat. He's lighting a lighter, looking at the card and turning it this way and that way, trying to figure it out. He probably didn't read English, and he was trying to figure out the little map that it was on it. So then we arrive at a place. I have no idea if I'm where I'm supposed to be. I was just praying, Lord, help me to get there safely. And sure enough, I was at the right place. He tried to get me to give him more money. I don't think I did give him any extra money because I had been told by the missionaries this should be enough, so I went with that. Later, I kind of felt bad that I didn't give him some extra, but I also only had so much they had given me, and I had another trip to take going back to the airport later. So anyway, but God had gotten me there, and Ruth was there waiting for me, and she was able to take me shopping, see a couple of things in the city while I was there for those couple of days. And I was engaged to Matthew by this time, and I bought fabric to make the girls' dresses for our wedding in Bangkok, Thailand, which was kind of special. And then when it was time to, so then I had a good time. But then on my way out, leaving Bangkok, I was also going through the Philippines again. And I had a very short stay in the Philippines. That's why nothing had been arranged for me to meet anyone. And I only was supposed to be there like an hour or two at most. And when I got there, 2 names were called, mine and a man from Indonesia. And we went up to the counter and they said, you've been bumped from the next flight, the flight to the US to Hawaii. You've been bumped because we were overbooked. So we'll put you up in a hotel, but you'll be flying out tomorrow afternoon. So, I was very like, oh dear, what do I do? I didn't have any way to reach anyone. It wasn't like cell phone days or anything. I had stayed with some people called the Loves. They were missionaries on my way through before, but I didn't have a way to reach them, and I didn't know what to do. So they just brought us, I think by taxi, the 2 of us, this young man from Malaysia who was going to Canada through LA. And so we were both delivered to this hotel, which was, you could tell it had been a nice hotel, but it was not kept up. And when I got into my room, I found there were, I forget the name of the bugs that crawl in older buildings, like in the cities and stuff. I forget what they're called, sorry. But you would know what I mean, I think. So anyway, those were in my room, and I did get a chance to call from there. Somehow I was able to call my husband-to-be and his family who were going to meet me at the airport to let them know I wouldn't be on the flight. They thought that I would tell them what time I was supposed to be there the next day. And so that was good. And then this young man said, I'll meet you for dinner. And right in the hotel was a place to eat, and we ate. And I realized that night when I was looking at my tickets that I was missing a ticket. The ticket was my final ticket home from California to Maine for my long trip. And I had not happened, but I was in the Philippines, in Manila, at this time, and that's where I had gotten bumped. And I was missing my last ticket back then they would pull them out of a book, and the last one had stuck in the book. I was guessing. But so I mentioned it to him. I said, I looked in my book and my last ticket is missing. And he said, oh, I know where the Philippine Airlines headquarters is. I'll take you there tomorrow. So I was like, oh, okay, that would be great. So he brought me to the Philippine Airlines, this building. I can still picture it. We went upstairs into this big open room with lots of cubicles all over. And they brought me to the certain one. And they look in this book. And sure enough, there is my last ticket. And it's like such a miracle to me that God did that he got me bumped. I hadn't noticed before that I was missing. I had quite a few different tickets in that book. I had looked through it, but I hadn't noticed until it got down to those few that one was missing. And so that was a huge blessing. I had childlike faith, and this was when I was older. I was 24. I turned 24 while I was in Bangladesh, and God was showing me his provision, his protection, his how much he loves us, and it was just a huge blessing to me. And I did want to go into missions, and my husband Matthew was a missions major at college, but once we got married, we did start applying to that mission board. Matthew had wanted to work with Muslim people, That was his goal, because they were kind of the most in the world that were unreached. And but it didn't end up working out that we did that, and we also struggled with infertility. And in the end, after almost 8 years, the Lord blessed us with our first boy, Jerry, and then 4 years later, just short of 4 years later, with Benaiah. And I when I was infertile and not having children, it was very hard, and I would just pray and ask the Lord, please, and think of Hannah in the Bible, who also was infertile. And once Jerry came, I said to the Lord, oh, I will never complain if you never give me another child, because I'm so thankful that you did give me one. And I thought, like Hannah, what a blessing it was to have that child, and Jerry was such a blessing. And then almost 4 years later, the Lord blessed us with Benaiah, and I realized, and I had told Jerry, you're my Samuel, like Hannah in the Bible. You're my Samuel, even though his name was Jerry, because Matthew wanted to name him after his dad. And so after I had Benaiah, I said, oh, God gave me my first and my second Samuel. He gave me two. He double blessed me with two boys, and they have been such a blessing. And they became kind of my mission field, really. I did work for 12 years, the first almost 12 years of our marriage, or actually 13. So Benaiah was 1 year old when I got done, and Jerry was 5 and ready to be schooled, and Matthew wanted us to homeschool. So that became my mission field, was working with our boys and raising them to love the Lord. And again, I'm in a situation needing to trust God for his provision. And when we look back at all he's done for us and how good he is and how he's provided for us in the past, that should give us confidence to trust him for our present and our future. And right now I've been looking for a job. I'm unemployed, but I know the Lord is going to provide, as he always has in the past. And I'm just very grateful for him, for his love. And I'd like to share, I forgot to look up ahead of time, Jeremiah 9:23 and 24. Let not the I'm going to forget it now that I'm trying to say it. Let not the mighty man glory in his might, the rich man in his riches, or the wise man in his wisdom, but let him that glories glory in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am the Lord, who exercises loving kindness and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, says the Lord. That's one of my favorite verses, because it's just about, it's knowing him is the purpose of our lives. It's not being rich, it's not even being wise, it's not being mighty or powerful physically, the things that we can do with our lives. It's knowing him is the purpose of our lives. And so I'm grateful for that, and grateful for children in my life, and now grandchildren. God has blessed us with 3 grandchildren here on earth and 1 in heaven, and we're very grateful for each one of them, and for all his provision and the things that we learn through this life. And thank you so much for listening. God bless you. Bye-bye.